Hi there, folks. This is Adam with 8 Badge Gaming coming to you with our first deck tech in quite some time. We've had a little bit of a hiatus on our side due to myself organizing the most recent Magic the Gathering charity tournament that we put off each year. Uh, Ridiculous work schedules, people going back to school, Ryan moving away, etc. There is many reasons, but we're hoping to get back into it. I'm starting it off with a deck voted for by you, the people, which is the Lapras Quagsire deck. Now, this is a deck that did top 32, the most recent regionals, and it looks like a pretty interesting brew to say the least. So, without any further ado, let's go ahead and jump on into it. Now, I've got the full deck itself up here on screen. We're taking a bit of a different approach this week with how we're going to go through the deck, how we're going to talk about the cards, and how we're going to discuss it overall. First up, we have the deck itself laid out. You can see the quantities, the cards included, etc. But we're going to dive into the actual deck card by card, and we're going to start off with our main attackers there today. Now, the main attackers in the deck are going to be a 3 of Lapras GX, a 1 of Palkia GX, a 1 of Volcanion Prism, though that does work as a utility Pokemon as well, and a 1 of Kyogre from Celestial Storm. Now, the Lapras GX is going to be the primary attacker in the deck itself. It's your main quantity of 3 of, and it's going to be looking to do some ridiculous damage, specifically with Blizzard Burn. Now, Lapras GX is 190 HP basic. It can use its collect attack for a single water energy, which is draw 3 cards. It can do a Blizzard Burn, which is 160 damage for triple water energy, and this Pokemon can't use this attack during the next turn. And you can also Ice Beam for double water and 1 for 100 damage, and your opponent's active Pokemon is now paralyzed. Now, Lapras is going to be the primary attacker because Blizzard Burn is hitting for 160 or 190 with a choice band. And we're going to get to the tools a little bit later. But we're going to be using this to quickly fuel up, say, a Lapras using things like Aqua Patch, get it up into the active, toss a choice band on it, and looking to one hit quite frequently. Now, 190 isn't the exact number that we need often, but we're going to discuss how we're going to be hitting the exact numbers with this deck a little bit later. Now, we do also have a Palkia GX. Now, we're running the Dragon type rather than the Water type, and this is specifically for the typing issue. Where Gliscopod is still kicking around, people are running things like Decidueye, we don't want to fall prey to weakness. So we're using the Dragon type Palkia GX here. Now, with the Palkia GX, we have 180 HP basic. It has a single water energy attack for spatial control, and you can move any number of energy from your bench Pokemon to this Pokemon. Then we have Hydro Pressure, which is triple colorless for 60 damage, and this attack does 20 more damage times the amount of water energy attached to this Pokemon. So where this deck is literally only running water energy, if you can use a Hydro Pressure, you can hit for 120 for triple energy, so 60 plus 20 for each energy. Now, if we start fueling up additional energy onto a Palkia, we're looking at, say, 5 energy when we're looking at a 0 Vanish GX. We're looking at hitting for not 120, but 160, which then also leads to big KOs when you're looking at throwing on a choice band. Now, we also have the Zero Vanish GX, which is 150 damage for triple water and double colorless, and you shuffle all energy from your opponent's Pokemon into their deck. So this is great specifically against things like Rayquaza. They're trying to build up and fuel up as much energy as possible, and if you just go, okay, let's go ahead and put a Palkia into the active, use this 5 energy attack, and wipe your board clear of energy while also possibly taking a knockout if we have a choice band, we're just setting our opponent so ridiculously far behind. Now, 5 energy is a lot to ask for, but it's not too hard for this deck, and we'll show you how in just a few moments. Now, next up we have our Volcanion Prism. Now, this is 160 HP basic. It is a Prism card, so we can only run a single copy of it. Now, we're using this for 2 different reasons. First off is its Jet Geyser ability. Once during your turn before you attack, you may discard a water energy from your hand, and if you do, your opponent switches their active Pokemon with one of their benched. So you're able to just force up a benched Pokemon, basically. You unfortunately don't get to choose which one it is. It's not just a straight Lysander effect. But it is half of an escape rope, for example. Now, this is also good for getting water energy into our discard to be able to be used with our Aqua Patches, but it also, if our opponent's down to only a few Pokemon remaining, forces up potentially damaged Pokemon, or forces up, say, something that has a higher retreat cost or isn't prepared to attack, and just makes it a harder time for our opponent overall. Now, we are also looking to use it for its Sauna Blast attack, which is 100 damage for triple water, and it also does 20 damage to each of your opponent's benched Pokemon. So this can be that additional, say, 20 damage on a 210 HP Pokemon that might have been retreated after a Lapras has Blizzard burned it for 190, for example. So this is another way that we're going to be trying to hit those 210 numbers for things like Zoroark, Lycanroc, Lissapod, etc., is through some additional damage that you'll see sniping here with Sauna Blast, for example. Now, it also has a differing weakness of being weak to electric instead of grass, and there's not many electric Pokemon being run just yet, though Lost Thunder is likely going to change that. But as of the moment, as of recording this video, as of playing these games, Volcanion Prism is still going to be a good Pokemon for this deck. Next up, we have our one of Kyogre. Now, this is 130 HP basic, and it has two different attacks. We're looking at Dual Splash, which is a water and a colorless, and this attack does 30 damage to two of your opponent's Pokemon. Now, this can be benched or active, but obviously for benched Pokemon, you don't apply weakness or resistance. Now, this is another Pokemon that we're going to be able to use to kind of take snipes on things that have already been weakened. It's going to let us just put the additional damage that we need to finish off Pokemon more often than not. And even if, say, we have a Lapras go off with a Blizzard Burn against a Rayquaza, they retreat it because we didn't have a choice band to KO it. We can use a Kyogre to be able to KO it pretty easily. Now, we also do have Grand Wave, which is 120 damage for double water and 1, and this Pokemon can't use Grand Wave during your next turn. So it's pretty straightforward. It's 120 damage. You can use it every second turn. And if need be, we can just kind of snipe away with that Dual Splash ability, which is the main purpose of running the Kyogre in the deck. Now, following up our main attackers, we have our utility Pokemon. Now, this is where you're going to see how we're going to be moving this energy around, how we're going to have the consistency in the deck, and that's primarily through the Lapras Quagsire evolution chain. Now, Wooper is just a straightforward 70 HP Pokemon. It is a basic, it has 2 attacks, 10 damage for Ram for a single colorless, or 20 damage through Rain Splash for a water and a colorless. But we're not running it for just being a Wooper, we're running it to be able to evolve into Quagsire. Now, Quagsire is 120 HP stage 1 with the ability of Washout. Now, Washout says as often as you like during your turn before you attack, you may move a water energy from one of your bench Pokemon to your active Pokemon. And then we have Hydro Pump, which is triple colorless for 60 damage, plus 20 more damage for each water energy attached to this Pokemon. So quite literally the same kind of attack that we were looking at on Palkia GX. So this is a utility Pokemon that can also double as an attacker, but we are running this primarily for the Washout ability. Now we're running a lot of different, say, Pokemon switching items, tools, etc. in this deck. We're running a full 4 of Guzma, which we'll get into. We're running things like Escape Rope. We're looking at getting our opponent's Pokemon out of the active, but also getting our own opponent, or our own Pokemon rather, out of the active. And then being able to switch all the energy back up to the active using just that Washout ability. Now, being a potential attacker as well, 3 energy onto a Quagsire, being able to let it hit for 120 is still going to be applicable, but again, we're trying to use it for its Washout ability. Now, next up, we're running a Mephis. Now, it's only a one-of. It is a 60 HP basic with the ability of Blessings of the Deep. Now, once during your turn before you attack, you may heal 20 damage from one of your Pokemon that has any water energy attached to it, and it itself can attack for a total whopping 30 damage for a water and a colorless using Wave Splash. Now, this is a Pokemon we're not using to attack, period. We're trying to use it for Blessings of the Deep, which is going to allow us to heal up our Pokemon. Now, this is going to be applicable with the numbers that we're sitting at in this deck. So if we go back to our previous slide here for a second, we have our Lapras GX at 190 and our Palkia GX at 180. Now 180 is a pretty easy number to hit for right now, 160 particularly. So being able to heal 20 damage off is going to be almost negligible there. But where we're really looking to shine is being able to heal 20 damage off when we're getting those smaller attacks, when we're getting hit for, say, 100, 120, being able to take, say, 20 damage off a Lapras after being hit for 100, you're looking pretty well off, because now it's looking like your opponent has to hit you three times total instead of two times to be able to KO your Pokemon overall. So that HP healing can very much come in use there. Now, our last utility Pokemon is one that everyone knows and loves, obviously. It's going to be a single copy of a Tapu Lele GX, which is our 170 HP basic. It can attack for double colorless for energy drive, which is 20 damage times the number of energy attached to both active, and we will never use Tapu Cure GX in this deck. But the main purpose of running Tapu Lele, while it can also be an attacker, is its Wonder Tag ability, which is when you play this Pokemon from your hand onto your bench during your turn, you may search your deck for a supporter card, reveal it, and put it into your hand, then shuffle your deck. This is going to let you tutor up any supporter that you need out of the deck, whether it's a draw supporter because you're stuck at low cards in hand, whether it's a Guzma because you need to be able to force up your opponent's active Pokemon. It either way is going to be able to tutor up the supporter that you need fairly consistently. Now, we're only running it as a one-of because our benches are going to be pretty kind of chock full at the moment as it stands. We're looking to get quite a few different Pokemon into play and have them in play consistently there. We're looking to usually keep our Volcanion in play for being able to use the Jet Geyser ability. We're looking to keep Mephis in play to be able to use its Blessings of the Deep. We're looking to keep Quagsire in play to be able to use its Washout. And then we're looking at having, at most then, probably our active as an attacker and a secondary attacker on the bench. We're really not looking at having much bench space available, so we don't want to be filling it up with Leles. Now, following up our Pokemon, we're moving into our supporters. Now, with the supporters themselves, we're running the typical 4 of Cynthia, 4 of Lily that a lot of decks are running now because we don't have the same consistency in the draw supporter power that we did in our previous standard. Now, Cynthia is just shuffle your hand into your deck, then draw 6 cards, so it allows you to get around having to discard cards that you might be able to need later on in, say, the game itself, but still can refill your hand pretty consistently. Then we have our Lily, which is the supporter that we love to have on turn 1 if at all possible, which is draw until you have 6 cards in your hand. If it's your first turn, draw cards until you have 8 cards in hand. So if you are able to, say, empty as much out of your hand as possible on turn 1, then Lily to draw, say, 6, draw 7, even possibly draw 8 if it's your last card in hand if you're lucky. This is just a strong supporter overall, and can still be good late in game when you're just top decking and you need something to be able to refill your hand pretty consistently. Now, next up we have our Professor Kukui, and this is another way that we're looking to be able to hit irrelevant numbers. Professor Kukui lets you draw 2 cards, which is nice and all, but we're looking to be able to use the second line of text, which is during this turn, your Pokemon's attack do 20 more damage to your opponent's active Pokemon. So this is going to let our wonderful Lapras with a choice band now hit for 210 damage, which is that kind of very specific number that we're looking for to be able to one-shot those 210 HP Pokemon like the previous mentioned Zoroark, Lycanroc, Lissapod, etc. So this is going to allow us to just kind of get that little final snippet of damage that we might need to be able to take a one-shot KO, which is what this deck is trying to focus on. Now, rounding out our supporters, we're running a 4 of Guzma. Now, again, this is a deck that we're looking to try and consistently keep moving our active to our bench, moving our energy up to the active using Quagsire's Washout, and then just going for a one-shot once again. Now, with Guzma, we're going to be able to kind of put up anything that might have already been damaged as well on our side, so then we can, or rather on our opponent's side, so then we can just take a snipe on it as necessary, not do a full-blown attack, or potentially get them stuck with a high retreat Pokemon in their active without the ability to get it out of there. Now, following up our supporters, we're looking at our first page items. Now, with our items, we're running the aforementioned 4 of Aqua Patch, and this is just going to be used to kind of ramp up your attacks in a quicker fashion. Being able to discard a water energy through Jet Geyser, through the Ultra Balls, which we'll get to in a moment, being able to get those water energies in the bin, even say off of a retreat, off of a KO, etc. Aqua Patch is going to let you then just fuel that back up onto one of your benched water Pokemon, but with Quagsire's Washout, you're going to be able to then move that directly up to the active. So essentially, if you have a Quagsire in play, Aqua Patch is is just essentially going to put an energy onto your active Pokemon or onto any one of your benched Pokemon, period. So you're just going to be able to put a bench, or an energy rather, anywhere on the bench or active using that washout capability. Now, we are also running a 1 of Rescue Stretcher. We do need to be able to recycle our Pokemon if needed. If they KO our Wooper before we get the chance to evolve, if they KO our Quagsire, we might need to be able to get it back into hand. But we would like to be able to run that 1 of Rescue Stretcher to, at worst case scenario, shuffle 3 Pokemon back into our deck. Following that, we have our 2 of Escape Rope, and again, this is just a way to be able to get our own active Pokemon out of the active, while still potentially forcing up one of our opponent's benched Pokemon, and then try and take that one-shot snipe as necessary there. Following up our Escape Rope, we are using a 2 of Acrobike. Now, Acrobike is just look at the top 2 cards of your deck, put one of them in your hand, discard the other. Now, this could be another way to potentially get a water energy into the discard, but try not to use it for that consistently. Really, you're just trying to use Acrobike for card advantage. Give you a selection of the top 2 cards, put it in your hand, and just kind of get a little bit deeper into your deck. Now, following this, we have our final item, which is the Ultra Ball, our stadiums, and our tools. Now, with Ultra Ball, it's a 4 of in the deck, as is typical of most decks, short of, I think, say, the Psychic Necrozma Malamar deck, which Mysterious Treasure just ends up being kind of a better in-slot item there, because it can still tutor any Pokemon out of the deck, but only forces you to discard a single card. Now, Ultra Ball is going to let you just tutor any Pokemon out of your deck. It's going to let us get the consistency of making sure that we have an attacker in play, making sure that we get our evolutions for Quagsire when we need, just being able to get that consistency there, and even worst case scenario, get some water energy into the bin, so then we can Aqua Patch it onto one of our Pokemon. Now, following up the Ultra Ball, we have our 3 of Brooklet Hill, which is the only stadium in the deck. Now, Brooklet Hill reads, once during each player's turn, that player may search their deck for a basic water or fighting Pokemon and put it onto their bench, then shuffle their deck. This is another card that's going to allow us to have that consistent setup that we want, to be able to go ahead and get our Woopers, get our Mephis, get our Volcanions, our Kyogre, whatever we need, we can tutor up with Brooklet Hill minus the Palkia GX. Now, that could be an argument to try and run the Palkia water version, but again, we're looking at the typing there particularly, so we're not getting so much as exploited on weakness with the Dragon Palkia compared to the water Palkia. Now, following up our stadiums, we're getting into our tools, which is going to be a 3 of Choice Band and a 4 of Experience Share. Now, Choice Band as a tool gives your active Pokemon, or the Pokemon that it's attached to, the ability to deal 30 more damage to your opponent's active EXs and GXs. Now, with EXs no longer in the format since rotation, this is again just looking at GXs, but this is going to let us hit those one-shot numbers with the Lapras, looking at 190 damage with just, say, Choice Band alone, and looking to increase that up to, say, 210 damage with Kukui. Now, following up our Choice Band, we have our 4 of Experience Share, which says when your active Pokemon is knocked out by damage from one of your opponent's attacks, you may move 1 basic energy from that Pokemon to the Pokemon that this card is attached to. So if you have Experience Shares on your bench Pokemon, your active is knocked out, you can move 1 energy to each of the Pokemon on your bench that has an Experience Share. And with Quagsire's washout ability, we can then reallocate that energy essentially to whatever active that we promote. So Experience Share is going to allow us to retain the energy even in the face of KO, and allow us to just continue firing off those one-shot capabilities there. Now, following up our items, stadiums, and tools here, we get into our water energy, which is the only energy in the deck. It's just a straight of 11 energy. Now, with this, again, we're just trying to have the consistency of making sure that we have water energy when we need it. We are looking to be able to use a minimum generally of 3 energy to be able to attack, so we want to keep a decent quantity here, while still being able to discard them at least somewhat aggressively for future Aqua Patch fuel ups. Now, that does actually clue up the deck there today. I do hope that you enjoyed this deck tech video. It did run a little longer than I expected, and I do hope you'll enjoy the new format itself for how we're looking to present it. As always, we're looking forward to hearing any feedback that you might be able to give, any suggestions you may have, and we're always looking to improve our content. We do greatly appreciate your viewership, and this is Adam with 8 Badge Gaming, signing off.